Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hey, what's going on? It is your friend Cesar Espino from www.CesarREspino.com, and I am so excited to be here because today it is the beginning of a brand new podcast called You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. And let me tell you, you're gonna have so many great people here that are coming from all walks of life that are gonna share their stories, their journey, and how they become the person that they are now, because they can truly overcome anything, even when the world says no. So I'm so excited to share this with you. And what you're gonna be expecting on this podcast is that you're gonna have people again from all walks of life. It could be from marketing, it could be from social media, it could be a real estate investor, it could be financials. Believe me, you're gonna get so much that you're gonna be blown away by the information that you're getting in this podcast. My objective for you is to have as many as we can throughout the day. And one thing that we're going to be doing is that one of the podcasts throughout the month is going to be in Spanish, because we're going to be tapping into our Spanish market. It is so critical that we embrace and help everybody in our community. So, with that said, I definitely want to talk to you about who I am, where I came from, and definitely give you a bit of my background, and stay tuned for more of this wonderful podcast. So the question is, who am I and where I come from? So I want to tell you a little bit about my background, and want you to understand and see where I came from and why you might be able to relate to my story, and hope that through my story I can also help you and inspire you and empower you to keep pushing forward, moving forward in your life, right? So I was actually born in Mexico City, and I was born in Mexico City to just one parent. I didn't have a dad. As a matter of fact, even to this day, I don't know who's my biological father, right? And it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, I was born just to one parent, which is my mom. And we grew up in this, in this classification, or the social classification. So for those of you that know, Mexico really goes based on the different classifications of your wealth, right? And so we were like the lowest of the lowest when it comes down to that social classification. We didn't have anything. It was just my mom, my grandmother, and my older brother, and myself, and I was born into this society and to this family. And we were living in a what I consider to be, or we consider to be, our home, which was really just a one room that was no bigger than 250 square feet. Now, can you imagine that, right? I mean, it's nothing bigger than 250 square feet. I'm sure that maybe your rooms, or some of your rooms, are probably even bigger than that. Yet alone, that's all we had. That was our home, what we consider to be our home. Now, this home was really, to begin with, the land where we had this room. It was not even our land. We actually were renting this from somebody else. And we had no electricity, no running water inside that place. It was purely dirt, right? There was nothing there, no carpet or anything like that, or no insulation. And we had this place that was made out of sheet metal and plywood. Okay, so if you can picture that, that's where I was born into. That was the really my early ages. And as you guys know, I'm also an NLP practitioner. So if you know the way the mind works for us human beings, you really your first 7 years of your life are the years that are the most critical, because you learn, different things, different beliefs. You learn all these different, attributes about your life. And so if you're born into a poverty, or a place where there seems like there's nothing better or for you in the world, you're gonna grow up with that idea, and with that thought in your mind, right? So that was pretty much me, right? I mean, I was born into this place where, again, I didn't have anything. And so fast forward, 3 to 4 months into my fourth birthday, that was probably the first time that I had maybe my very first turning point. And I say this because my mom, at that time, again, I had just turned 4 years. My mom decided to take her own leap of faith by coming to the United States and following that American dream that many people that were not born in this country, are going after, right? And so this was one of those moments where, like, wow, it was, now that I look back, I mean, it was obviously a great thing that my mom did. However, back then, she decided to leave everyone behind. And what I mean by that, she left her, myself, my older brother, and my grandmother behind, so that she can follow her dream. Now, at that time, when I was 4 and a half, you think, and you said, well, what did I do? Was there something that maybe I triggered her to leave, without not knowing the full story as to why she was leaving, right? And so, nevertheless, she ended up leaving. And so that was what I consider to be one of my first turning points, because at that age, at the age of 4, not only was I poor, now I didn't even know my biological father, and to top it off, my mom just decided to leave, not knowing when she was going to come back, to be honest with you. And so it was just my older brother and my grandmother, and now I had to take the change in life to start working. And so I started working at an early age, 4 and a half. We started working, and some of the things that we did, I still remember this, is that we used to go to the tianguis, which is a flea market, per se, and we would go there and we do taquitos, quesadillas, waffles, ofleas. We were doing that to be able to generate some income and just help ourselves. And we even sold donuts. I mean, we did everything, right? We were really selling all kinds of stuff. And I remember, as a kid, I didn't have the luxury to be a kid, and so I didn't have the opportunity to do what I would say the majority of the kids would do, which is, play, don't worry about working, just, do what kids do. And again, I don't even know what that is, because I didn't have that. I didn't even have toys, let alone have the ability to do any of that stuff, or even have birth dates or any of that stuff. So I remember, my life will be, I get up, I go to school, I come back, I literally had to do my homework, and then after that I had to, to work. And there was times that, even if I wanted to escape and go play for like 5, 10, 15 minutes, my grandma would come out and just, literally drag me into the house and get back to work, because that's what we were conditioned. That was what we were, that was our life, we were grown in that environment. And so we couldn't do any of that. And now I understand why, even so now in my life, now I am so aggressive when it comes down to getting things done and doing different things. When it comes down to performing, is because at the end of the day, when I was a kid, again, in the ages of between 1 through 7, you learn those attributes, and so for me, that was one of the things that I learned, which was to actually work, hard, or work, period, right? And so anyways, that was one thing. Now, the selling at the flea market was not quite well working out, and so then I consider this, we kind of graduated, and we ended up now doing something else, which we actually, the three of us, we ended up getting our own sewing machine, right? So I actually had my own sewing machine. We would be making clothing for dolls, right? That was our job, and I remember sewing the clothes just so that we can get that. So our objective was to get as much clothes as we can. I still remember we'll get these big old bags, like think about those 50-gallon bags full of clothes. We'll get on the micro, which is like the bus, and we will go and go across the city to take these clothes on the bus so that we can actually get paid. Luckily for us, we never got robbed, or nothing ever happened, or we never lost any of that stuff. Again, though, we had to do that, right? And so again, even growing up through those years, there was times that we didn't have much. I remember sometimes we we had what I consider to be the specialty dish, the specialty Mexican dish, which is literally just a tortilla with grain of salt, because that's all we had growing up, right? And so again, my first years of being born, it was nothing but working. It was nothing but just trying to survive and create some sort of income to be able to help us. Now, when I was 10, I remember my mom came, and this was the second time. Actually, she had come when I was 7. I came to the States literally for just like 2 months, and it looked like a fairy tale. It looked like a Disney movie, right? It's all very nice and dandy. And then after that, after 2 months, that dream was taken away, and we went back to reality. So that was kind of interesting. By the way, you can learn more about this in my book. You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. I talk about that story there. So anyways, at the age of 10, my mom came back, and this time she came with the determination of taking all of us, my grandmother, my older brother, myself, to the States. And this is really when I migrated to the States at the age of 10. And that by itself was not that good of a experience, because it took me about 2.5 to 3 weeks to actually come to the States. Crossing the border and going through all that stuff it wasn't fun, and obviously I didn't have the choice, right? I was being dragged into that. Except there was a lot of experiences that I don't totally agree that people should be going through, and we did. So nevertheless, I came at the age of 10, and that I remember coming to the States, and I was just 10 years old. I started 5th grade, and I fell out of place. And I'm sure that many of you guys can relate to it. It could be in anything, right? I mean, sometimes you feel like you're trying to do something and you feel out of place. And so I felt out of place because, number one, I couldn't communicate with anyone. I had no friends. I really didn't have anyone that I can talk to or pass any time. Now, let alone, this was the first time that I actually was in a position where I didn't have to work to survive. Except on the other hand, on the flip side, it felt even worse for me, because again, I couldn't communicate, I couldn't speak, I couldn't read, I couldn't write the language, English, whatsoever. And so it was very, very hard. I remember one time I was talking to my dad, and so my dad, who I consider to be my dad now, is my stepdad. He married my mom, many years ago when I was probably like 7 or 8. Anyways, I see him as my dad now. Back then, I didn't recognize him as that, and he was just my stepdad. So anyways, I remember this as if it was just yesterday. I was talking to him, and I said, he was telling me some stuff, and I'm like, you're not my dad. So first of all, you cannot tell me anything, number one. Number two, I don't want to be here. I don't fit in. I want to go back to Mexico. I want to go back to that life that I had. And I remember being so angry at the world. I was so angry at just being here. And, I asked to go back. Now, think about it for 1 second. This happens to us on every single moment in our lives. Sometimes we as people are so afraid and have that fear of being uncomfortable that we rather go back to what we're used to, and we rather go back to being comfortable. And what I mean by that is that I was comfortable being poor. I was comfortable working for myself. I was comfortable not having anything, and I was fearful of being in this great country and being able to, for once, not work, or for once, have a better life. I was afraid of that. And so a lot of times we are so afraid of the unknown that we don't take that next step, right? It can happen in anything in our lives. It could be a relationship, it could be your life, it could be a job, it could be maybe the time for you to make a change in your life. And again, a lot of times we're so afraid of that, and so you have to make sure that you can definitely don't let that fear take the best out of you. Right, so that was my first, I guess, encounter in this country, and I'm so glad that my dad didn't listen to me, and he decided to keep me here. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you, right? So I'm glad that didn't happen. And so, I did another thing, and a lot of times we have to just do that. I surrender to the process. I surrender to the situation. I surrender to the circumstances, and I accepted that this was going to be my new life, and I had to do something about it. And so sure enough, I did, and I started making friends. I don't know how, but I started making friends. I couldn't communicate with them, yet I still started making friends, and I surrendered to the process. And within just 2.5 years, 2 years, 2.5 years, I was able to master and read, write, and learn and speak the language, which was really good for me. And it just gave me that upper hand to be able to communicate with many, many different people. And so, well, that's something that I'm very grateful for. Now, I remember one thing, my grandma, although we had to work at an early age, she was a firm believer of education, and so therefore I learned that from her, and so me coming to the States, I wanted to make sure that I did good in school, so I was very active when it comes down to the academics and things like that. I was very active in school and helping out teachers and volunteering, things like that. I did what many other people, I would say many people don't do when they come here from a different country, which is just stay focused with your education, continue to work on yourself. I know a lot of people, and I still don't get it, by the way, is how is it that some people come here, they have this great opportunity, and they throw it away by getting into gangs or getting into any kind of tagging crews, or just doing things that they're not supposed to do, right? And so I would definitely empower you that in anything that you do, that don't let what seems to be probably the norm, or what might seem to be the majority of the people doing. Don't follow that. Follow different aspects in your life, because that's gonna get you to the next level. So for me, I had a lot of influences, and I'm glad I didn't fall into any of those influences, and I continue to work hard on myself by surrendering and really accepting my new reality. My biggest perhaps I guess turning point was at the age of 15, and it is, it's also my biggest blessings, to be honest with you. Back then, that was very, very difficult, and part of that is because at the age of 15 going to the age of 16, I actually had my daughter, right? So can you imagine that? Again, being in the States for no more than 5.5 years, not really having a whole lot, and not only did I work as a kid, now I'm a kid, raising a kid, right? That was crazy. And so for me to have that, I remember telling my daughter, I said, you know what, I'm gonna give you a promise, and that promise is that you will not work like the way I did when I was a kid. Number one. Number two, I'm gonna make sure that you have everything that I didn't have as a kid. And number three, I need to get working. I need to start working. I need to make sure that I do my part. And so, sure, I did. I continued to go to school. I was very, very, involved with the school, and I will work. Pretty much every day. So my life was, get up, take the bus, go to school, 45 minutes to an hour, get out of school, then take another bus for about an hour and go to Century City, and that's where I worked, from literally from 3:30 to about 11:30 midnight, and then get back on the bus and come back home. And I did that for so long, and that was my life. And I missed out a lot, right? I missed a lot as a kid. I missed out a lot as a teenager, even as a young adult. I missed out a lot, and that's because of the conditions that I created for myself. And again, I don't regret any of those, except it has allowed me to really continue to push forward and move forward in my life, right? So again, I'm telling you this because I want to make sure that you understand, where I'm coming from, and a lot of times you can relate to this. One thing that I've been doing the last couple of months now is really that, or actually more like a couple of years, is more of that self-development, self-love. And what that means is that you have to make sure that you're working harder on yourself than you are in anybody else, right? And what I mean by that is make sure that you're working on educating yourself, make sure that you're working on creating different habits, different rituals. Make sure that you're working on becoming a better person of you than you were yesterday, right? A lot of times we tend to forget that, and we're seeking for validation, or we're seeking for somebody else's opinion on us to become that better person. Well, what about if you just start doing that on your own, right? And so that has been my journey. And when I go back and think about my high school years, I'm glad that I still graduated from high school. And by the time I graduated, I said, okay, well, what's next for me, right? So I decided to go back to school and get my associate's degree, because I knew that I needed to continue to get educated. So I went back to school to get my associate's, and then right after that, I got my bachelor's degree. And I landed a couple of jobs with some good companies. At the age of 24, I bought my first home, and things were good for me. Yet I was still doing a lot of things that that I could have done better when I look back. And part of that is that I did a lot of things on my own. And so I realize now that now you really have to be able to be around the right type of people, number one. Number two, you have to make sure that you have some sort of mentorship that can help you and guide you in anything that you're doing in your life, right? And so let me elaborate a little bit more on that. When it comes down to the people that you need to be hanging around with, I believe that there's three types of people that should be part of your circle. You hear this phrase a lot where, they tell you that you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with. And to an extent, I believe that, and I completely support that. And so part of that group, I think you have to have 3 types of people. Number one, you should have people that are playing at a higher level than you are. That are playing at a higher field than you are. And so with that, with those people, they're going to help you and they're going to empower you and they're going to bring you to their level. They're willing to help you out. The second group of people should be people that are playing at the same level field as you are, yet they're edifying you. They're helping you out. They're supporting you. They're probably even doing some sort of joint ventures with you, right? You're actually doing something together. And last, which probably is the most critical one, is you have people that are playing at a lower field than you are, except they want to become you. And what you have to do in turn is you have to reach down and pull them back up to your level, helping them out, embracing them, giving back. So that's part of the community that you should be building. And if you're not, you need to start doing that. That's my best advice to you that I can give you with that. The second thing I was talking about is getting a mentor. I myself, when I got my first house, then after that I said, you know what, I can do this. I bought a bunch of other houses. I was doing this all on my own, and I didn't have no one to teach me or show me. And guess what? I foreclosed on my properties. I short sold my properties, and I had a 10-year bad record. I lost thousands of dollars in properties because I was doing it on my own and I didn't have no one to teach me. And so therefore, I do believe you have to have a mentor. It doesn't matter if you're in real estate or you're in financing or you're trying to get into social media or even being an actor. You have to find someone that can help you, that is willing to be part of the circle of 5 that's going to help you become that person you need to become, right? And so again, this is really who I am. And fast forward to today, I can tell you that now I am a 2-time published author. I'm about to release my book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No, in Spanish, for the Spanish community. I've been getting a lot of people that are interested in that, and I am going to be working on another book in 2020. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. On top of that, I am a real estate investor. I am also a real estate mentor. So if you're looking to get into mentoring on real estate and you want to learn how to do that, please contact me. I can definitely help you with that. I am also an NLP practitioner, which is neuro-linguistic programming. I help people, overcome fears, phobias, and really get out of their own way. That's what I do with that. And last but not least, I am a business consultant and coach. And so that's who I am. And I just wanted to share that with you. And again, what I can tell you is make sure, as I mentioned earlier, that you're working harder on yourself than you're working on anybody else.
Do you feel stuck? Do you feel like life is against you? Do you feel like you can't get ahead? Well, we have a podcast for you. You can overcome anything with Cesar Espino, real estate investor and real estate coach, NLP practitioner, and author of the book of the same name. Cesar will show you a way to overcome anything in your life through talking with people from all walks of life that have done just that. You Can Overcome Anything podcast available on Spreaker.com.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe. And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.CesarREspino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under Cesar R. Espino. Once again, thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.